What is up, Rumble? What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Ryan Matta Show. I am your host, Ryan Matta. Happy Monday morning, folks. And boy, are we going to get into things today because we had a guest scheduled, but they did not show up. So last minute, I just tried to throw this show together. So we're going to bring you guys a little something. We're going to get into Bitcoin. We're going to jump over to bitcoinnews.com, our favorite trusted news source for Bitcoin and educational content around the Bitcoin ecosystem. Folks, smash that like button if you guys are just joining us. Check this out. Oh, we have a guest showing up today. He actually showed up. All right. Well, I already changed the show and got it all set up to do this. So give me 1 second, folks. It's a little hard for me to bring a guest on now in the middle of the show. Yeah, I already changed the thumbnails and everything, and I see our guest is here. So, well, let's give it a shot. All right. Bitcoin's at 68,000. I see our guest is here in the window. Give me a second, folks. Sorry about that. I had this all set up to go and didn't think he was going to show up on us. Hey, what's up, buddy? We've already started the show, so just give me 1 second. I can't hear you yet, so I got to add you to the scene. Give me 1 second. We'll do it here live. Sorry about that, folks. I didn't think he was going to show up, so I started the show, and we are on and rocking. Here he is. Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, I still can't see the video, but hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can see you. You're looking great, man.
All right,
Welcome
awesome.
to the show,
Well,
buddy.
thanks for having me, and so excited to be here. Sorry, I was sending you messages, and somehow Gmail was getting blocked. Anything I sent was bouncing back, so...
Oh, yeah. You guys are sending me DMs on Twitter, but my main Twitter account is in timeout. So since you guys are not following me, I'm not allowed to send you a message because you're not my follower. So if you guys follow me, I could send you guys messages. But since you guys weren't, I was trying to message you guys from my other Twitter as well. And I don't know if you guys got those. I sent you guys a couple emails this morning. I didn't think you guys were going to make it.
But I am following you, so it's probably a different account or...
Weird. Twitter's so...
We'll figure it out.
Fucking lame.
All right, how's the audio?
Audio's great, man. Everything's great. We're live right now, so give us a little introduction. Tell us about yourself, and we'll jump into this interview.
Perfect. Well, thanks a lot for inviting me. I am Sina. I am during the day, I'm a professor of business with an interest in anything business and economics, and I'm also a Bitcoiner and Bitcoin educator and entrepreneur. So I've been, running my Twitter account, posting anything on the intersection of Bitcoin and economics. Particularly recently, very much focused on the ETFs, which is probably the biggest news happening in the Bitcoin space, and just keep learning and sharing what I think.
What year did you get into Bitcoin?
Depends. It depends if you mean financially or just studying it. I first learned about it in 2015 when I was learning about cryptography and its application in business. I mostly had an academic interest in it when I was doing my PhD in business. We were working on a problem of transparency where businesses need to essentially share data about where their products are coming from. If you're buying from a supplier and that supplier is buying from other suppliers and you don't know where they are, later on disasters and disruptions down the road in your supply chain can impact your firm. You wake up in the morning and you see a disaster has happened in your factory in Bangladesh, and this impacts your stock price and everything else. So this was the problem, and we were thinking blockchain offers a good solution to this, and I just learned about it, understood how the blockchain work, and I had a background in cryptography as well, so I quickly understand how it works, but I was poor and barely had any money to invest. A few years later, when I graduated and moved to my postdoc position, then I began really having investable money, and I entered in Bitcoin financially. But it has been a hugely interesting journey. When I first learned about it, I was obsessed. When I first learned about its financial potential, I should say, because I thought it's a great technology and all, and it's slowly growing year after year. I was looking at, how the technology progresses, and to be honest, not much of the business promises were realized, because we can get into this all we want, but it's basically many business folks these days, when they talk about blockchain application in business, they basically mean a more glorified database, which where blockchain really doesn't add much, and it actually reduces performance. But that's a topic for another day. What really made it tick for me was that I had some considerable cash sitting there, and I understood that it's every day and every month it is losing value. So I was looking for some store of value. What should I do with my money? Right. Like many other people, the first thing that comes to mind is, well, first of all, you spend it as much as you can. But I'm not a huge spender. I've always been a saver, because I understand long-term capital accumulation. But next thing you do is probably you spend it on capital assets, car, house, and then stock market, right? But all of them have their own problems. They come with cost. They come with, lots of limits that regulation, government, all the other people put on you. So they're not all ideal, especially if you're getting into stock market. A lot of ordinary people don't like to even enter the stock market, because they think it's volatile. They could lose it all, that kind of thing. A lot of people are participating sort of passively. That's why passive funds are very, very popular through their 401ks and other stuff. But anything beyond that, actually picking stocks to outperforming anyway is sort of scary for many people, because understandably, most people are professionals and experts in their own field. No one has the time to also become a hedge fund. So I had that problem too myself. I was extremely busy. I was doing at the time I was, doing some work, research and teaching in the morning. When I came back home, I was working on my own publications and stuff. So pretty much 2 jobs and no time to research companies. And as I learned about Bitcoin, I was, something went off in my mind and said, if this thing is actually legit, if this is real and it's not a fake scam or pump and dump scheme, you have found something that solves your lifelong problem. It's an easy vehicle to store value. Keep the money you've earned once. You don't have to work extra to keep your money yourself that you've already earned. And apart from just keeping its value, because it's so new and it functions as essentially an explosive exponential technology, it also has the potential to multiply your wealth. So what else do you need? What kind of other investment do you need? So within months of me getting down the rabbit hole, I was liquidating everything I had anywhere else, brought it all in Bitcoin. And, I was educated in the traditional system, right? The diversification and prudent and risk analysis, but all of that went out of the window. Diversification is just a way to hedge your bets against what you don't know. So the more you know about Bitcoin, the less you need to diversify. So
diversification
that's
is
my
protection against ignorance, as Warren Buffett says it, right?
Exactly.
I've done quite a few videos on over diversification. I used to be that guy that was just, had this shit coin, that shit coin, that shit coin, this shit coin, right? And then when you realize you're so over diversified that you're just throwing money at random things instead of just focusing your energy and understanding what you're investing in. If you fully understand what you're investing in, you're not just throwing money at something randomly. You're allocating a percentage of your portfolio there because it's a smart investment versus, just randomly throwing darts at the shitcoin board, as I call it. What are your thoughts on proper allocation? You just said you started liquidating everything. If you're somebody that's well or off, you have a house, you have a car, is there a different percentage of your portfolio you recommend that they invest versus somebody that's maybe, working a 9 to 5, barely has a couple dollars in their savings account kind of thing? How do you advise people to allocate to Bitcoin?
Listen, if you're someone who is living paycheck to paycheck, which describes most people, first of all, I would look at what you're wasting your money on. We are really good at overspending on lots of things. You can begin thinking about small things like even coffee, right? You might be spending quite a bit on coffee. One of the best decisions I made in my life was I bought a pro espresso machine, and I've never gone to Starbucks except random events since then. Anyways, so try to save as much as you can here and there, and dollar cost average into Bitcoin. Especially if you don't have a lot of cash sitting there, just aping into it all at once is probably not a prudent approach. When I did, I also moved all my money within a couple months, not all at once. I put in a little bit, learned a little bit more, built my conviction, then put in more money, which gave me even more reason to spend my time on Bitcoin and learn about its potential. So I was just learning day and night out for hours and hours. And as the knowledge went up, the allocation went up. Right now I'm at 100%, but I don't advise this to most people because you're not going to survive the volatility. So first, make sure you have enough cash to give you a cushion to survive the volatility, right? So do not use the money that you need for something else for the next 4 or 5 years. Don't put that into something as volatile as Bitcoin. Always use dollar cost averaging, because dollar cost averaging is the best strategy for investing in such volatile thing as Bitcoin. Volatility is wonderful in Bitcoin because that means, as Michael Saylor says, it is a vitality. You can't have anything that grows that fast without volatility. It's just impossible, right? But you can tame those waves to your advantage by dollar cost averaging, and essentially it averages out the ups and downs, so you just get the beautiful uptrend without really getting pushed around by that. So save as much as you can, dollar cost average, have a plan. I would say percentage really depends on your level of conviction. For me, what I have is right, but if you are a really traditional person, maybe 1% is the way to start. Put 1% in, learn a little bit for some time. As soon as you feel ready, put more. What a lot of other people do is they look at this X and Y's model of Bitcoin, and Mr. X is predicting that this coin is going to get to $5 million. And who knows what the basis for that is, right? They are just engagement farming and creating FOMO. Hey, by the end of the next month, we're going to be at $800, $800,000, and people sort of take that as an informed opinion or informed analysis of some expert, then organize their life around it. Maybe borrow money, maybe build a financial plan that really depends on that price realizing, right? If you do that, you are sort of set up for failure, and Bitcoin will always punish tourists. It is something that it always does. If you are just a tourist, just want to get some cash and go out, Bitcoin will always surprise you. If you think it's going to go up, it's going to go down. If you think it's going to go down, it's going to go up and just leave you in massive misery. So long-term plan is the only sustainable planning in Bitcoin.
Now, when you say Bitcoin super volatile, I think a lot of people don't realize that in November of 2023, Bitcoin became less volatile than the NASDAQ, correct? So now, is that the free market becoming more stable than the most regulated market in the world?
Listen, it has grown from 16,000 to a high of, I believe, 75 in a span of less than a year, and from 30 to 75 in 4 months. Okay, that's huge, and it depends also on how you measure volatility. If you're just looking at standard deviation, the more the better, because that there's no way you can go up without having volatility, right? It's just impossible.
Yep.
That's the way it measures it. But there are other measures that you could use. But if you think about day-to-day volatility, yes, there has been days where Bitcoin has even become less volatile than traditional assets. And also, as more money gets into it, as the market cap grows, it's just harder to move that market cap with any incremental amount of money. So it just gets more and more amount of money to move it. So I expect some level of sort of normalization, but it's not going to be by any means a smooth curve. It's just going to be a lot of ups, a lot of downs, but on average, a steady and persistent pattern of positive trend.
And what you're seeing from these ETFs, can you walk us through a little bit of what we've seen so far as these ETFs now are some of the largest ETFs in the world in less than a couple months? It looks like they're on track to become the largest in the world. What are you expecting to see from these ETFs? Are you expecting to see other countries start to follow suit? I think was it I forget what nation just announced that they were eyeing up ETFs as well. It was oh man, I forget. Oh, the UK Bitcoin scene heats up as leaders push for ETF approval. So we're now seeing, yesterday it was the EU is starting to ban Bitcoin transactions from unverified digital asset wallets, which means if you want to make your own wallet and self-custody your own Bitcoin, which should be your God-given right to do, now the EU wants to ban it, of course. They take your guns, they flood your country with migrants, and then now they're going to take your ability to protect your wealth. Why not? Next will be your guns. And then UK. So what are you expecting to see? Are we going to see the United States maybe follow the EU's path? I mean, what are we expecting? We got Bitcoin ETFs approvals. Now they're going to take away your ability to hold wallets. What are you expecting from that?
Listen, we have been having this conversation since, as far as I remember, 2020. We've been talking with folks about, if this is good, if this is as good as you say, government is going to ban it. And of course, what we always said is that this is like, kind of like weed, right? It is decentralized. It grows everywhere. And unless you're willing to control every single person, there's no way government can really wrap their hands around it. So when you can't really ban something, you can only hurt it. But once you've hurt it, there's nothing else left. So you've just proven that you are not able to kill it. So the prudent approach for a government like the US has been what they're doing. Embrace it with caution, just try to put in as much regulation around it to keep your control over it, because that's what politicians do, right? They just expand their control over everything, and their job is to, protect their own seats, right? So that's what they're doing, but also understanding that there's no way they can fight this thing. You can only make a clown of yourself if you fight it, because it will come back, it will throw it out of the door, it will come back through the window. So, and especially we are lucky to live in the US where property rights are respected, and a lot of the people from within the government, they want this thing to succeed, and they want people to be able to have a technology to store their wealth. They want people to control their wealth. And there's of course another camp as well, but there is by no means a consensus on how they should treat Bitcoin, which is great. We want these people to be confused and still scrambling for what to do, and until the network effect and the Trojan horse does its job and spreads, because as Hayek says, the Austrian economist and the Nobel Prize winner, there's only one way to introduce something to replace fiat, and that's through a roundabout, sly way, meaning essentially applied to Bitcoin, it's basically decentralization. It has to be adopted from the bottom up, and it's exactly going according to the plan. First adopted by crazy cypherpunks and libertarians, then, early technology enthusiasts, then, regarded tourists with superficial understanding, but then they got broader adoption, and the general public knew about it, and all of that pressured the institutions. This is probably the first time that the population is adopting something ahead of the big boys and institutions and people in charge of finance. So now we have the ETFs, and someone like Larry Fink, who was an outspoken skeptic and actually anti-Bitcoin. He has some pretty bad remarks about Bitcoin. Now he is the champion. That's what Bitcoin does. It grows around you, it sneaks up on you, and it forces you to accept it because over time you realize there's nothing else you can do. This is something that people want. And unless you are able to control every single person, which no one can, it's going to grow. It's only a matter of when you get in and when you are ready to embrace it. Same thing with other governments. They actually have been, my thinking is a lot of the regulatory bodies, they look up to the US. Maybe not China or a few other countries, but many countries in Europe and in other parts of the world, they follow the US. If they know that SEC has looked into these things and the biggest asset managers in the world have looked at it and approved it for the biggest financial market in the world, it is very, very likely that other ones will just follow suit, with different speeds at their own pace after they've done their due diligence. But as far as it's getting the green light from the big boys, it's already at that level. So it's only a matter of time, and it's just, we can't even imagine how positive this would be over time. Essentially, you have broken a dam which was blocking Wall Street money. So now, 10 years or more of pent-up demand for the best performing asset in the world is being unleashed. So just this is going to be a wonderful year.
I like what you said there about it being decentralized, kind of like weed. I like to use the analogy. It's almost like the Bible, right? I think Robert Breedlove said it. He's like, no matter how many Bibles you burn, you are not getting rid of the Bible. It is entrenched in our history and in our society. And no matter what you do, you are never going to eradicate the Bible, because also a lot of people have it almost memorized in their heads as well. So you can even burn every copy of the Bible if you wanted. You're just not getting rid of it. There's no, you can outlaw or ban whatever church. There's many countries that have tried, and Christianity always comes back, right? And it's just like Bitcoin. I think you're right that it's so entrenched in our society right now that even when they try to ban it, they almost make it stronger, and they make it better. They make your conviction towards it harder. I mean, look what they did in prohibition with alcohol, and like you said, trying to ban weed, and now it's legal and you can fly with it in almost every country, and you can have it ordered and shipped right to your house, which I think almost goes in the opposite, where they want you drugged up, they want you dumbed down, they want to keep you as basically in this controlled slave little mindset, where Bitcoin is the exact opposite. When you start doing weed or drugs, your life doesn't normally necessarily ever get better. Normally it gets exponentially worse. But when you start saving in Bitcoin or you start reading the Bible, your life becomes exponentially better. What is your stance on what we're seeing around in these other countries? Do you think that this is going to continue to drive adoption, or do you think that it's going to lead to an inevitable revolution in their country?
Well, Bitcoin has been just on its path to hyperbitcoinization since day one. It has.
Hold on, before you go into that, tell us what hyperbitcoinization is for anybody that doesn't understand what you're saying there.
So it's basically the idea that if it is actually the hardest money in the world, it will be at some point adopted as the world reserve currency. It's where everybody will store their value in. And if that happens, a huge amount of the world's assets will be denominated in Bitcoin, and its purchasing power will be equal to a large portion of the world's wealth. In preparation for today, I actually wrote a late night article last night, mini article, and sent it through Twitter, which I'm assuming it didn't, it went to maybe the wrong account or something, but basically I added up all the wealth that's in the world. Your mic is mute.
Yes, I saw that. Yes, I'm pulling that up right now. Go ahead, keep talking about it.
Awesome.
I commented on there. I was like, oh, this is going to make a great topic for tomorrow's interview. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. I'll have it up here on the screen in 2 seconds.
Perfect. Yeah, so basically I looked at how much wealth I can account for, and definitely there's a lot more that I couldn't. But the big buckets are real estate, bonds, equities, and there is debt as well. There is money supply, just dollars and other currencies that are out there. So I added up all the store of value portion of all these assets, and it came at about 290 something $1 trillion, so almost $300 trillion. That's the amount of wealth that is in these assets, not total, just for storing value. For example, if you own a house, shouldn't be that expensive, and a lot of people can't afford houses because houses have been turned into an investment vehicle, right? Which is a crazy. This is really criminal. Something that people rely on to live and have a shelter on has now become a vehicle of financial speculation, which causes the price of the house to go higher than its utility would suggest, just because a lot of people have cash, have money, and they don't know how to store it because obviously cash is leaking value due to inflation. So they put it in something like real estate, and that causes real estate to have a monetary premium due to its now new function as a store of value. So if you add up all these monetary premium values, you get to 300 trillion, which is the theoretical amount of theoretical size of the market that Bitcoin can capture. And because we only have 21 million coins, and not even including the ones that are lost into the analysis, just use the 21 million, that gives us a $14 million estimate for each coin. So at Hyperbitcoinization, if we are right, and if Bitcoin gets to that position, it can get to $14 million a coin in today's dollars. And of course, by that time, today's dollars is just going to be massively debased. So numbers are going to change, but that's what we get. Of course, this is not not something you want to trade on. Of course, just want to give all the caveats. Don't get FOMO, please. But over the course of several decades, that's where we are going, and we've been saying that for years. And year after year, Bitcoin has followed the same path. So it's very hard to think of a case where it fails, but I'm willing to make that assumption that it will succeed.
So if I'm looking at this chart right, can you see the screen that I'm showing everybody right here?
Yes, I'm seeing a portion of it, but that's enough for me.
So yeah, on the first slide, you have the global wealth pie, which is where you're kind of showing right now Bitcoin's market cap's only 1.3 trillion. And then we see bonds at 133 trillion, equities at 109 trillion, gold at 14 trillion, and real estate at 308. And then I think the second one that you posted here is where Bitcoin basically engulfs. Are we saying it's going to engulf all of the bond market, a majority of equities, a portion of gold, and then even start eating away into real estate as well, correct?
Exactly.
And then, so you're predicting roughly a $293 trillion market cap and that's in today's dollars, right? So that's without hyperbolic inflating. And I don't have the chart up here, but if you look at the, how many Argentinian pesos you needed to buy a Bitcoin in 2015 versus today, it's probably how many Argentina pesos is one Bitcoin versus what it was, and will we eventually, if we see hyperinflation, I mean, not if, when we see hyperinflation in the United States, what do you think these numbers actually look like? Is that how do I want to say that? A lot of people go, well, what is Bitcoin going to be priced in? I actually got a guy that asked me that yesterday, and I said it should just hyperinflate with the currency. Am I saying that correct?
Listen, exactly. So as we get to that number, actually those numbers may never realize, because about the time that we're getting to that level of adoption, dollar will not be used anymore as the main denominator, right? Unit of account. So if Bitcoin is being universally adopted, at some point the value just exponentially moves from the dollar to Bitcoin. So the numbers are just going to be astronomical, and they wouldn't even matter anymore because dollar would quickly lose its value. So essentially, the way to think about that graph is in terms of purchasing value, purchasing power of Bitcoin. So whatever 300 trillion can buy now, Bitcoin will be able to buy at the Hyperbitcoinization. But dollar may not be as widely in use as it is today when we get there. So sort of dollar is kind of something we have to use for now, just as a measure of value. But it's going to be a very, very non-linear transition as we. So essentially, I said that after some time, I expect Bitcoin volatility to go down a little bit because of the market cap. But it's actually interesting because after it passes a certain escape velocity, it really begins to eat away into dollar's role as a medium of exchange as well. If that happens, then all the equations are out of the window. So anything that's measured in dollars is not going to be valid because dollar as a measure, as a yardstick of wealth, as a unit of account, will be changing its role.
When Trump left office in 2020, the dollar made up for 80% of global trade worldwide. Today, the US dollar only makes up for roughly, I think it's less than 20% of global trade. Obviously, every day, less and less countries are choosing to use the dollar. I don't think anybody in the United States really understands the impact of what that's going to do to us as a civilization. We only have now, I think there's 6.7 or $7.1 trillion in debt that's owned by these other nations. I think Japan owns $1 trillion. China's less than $1 trillion now. How long do you think it is before America really starts to feel the crushing weight of, that 17 trillion that was outstanding? Now it's only 7. I mean, the Federal Reserve's been basically sucking up all of that liquidity. How long before the United States really starts to feel the weight of inflation like these other countries have felt?
Listen, I have a couple points to add here from multiple perspectives. Number one is great civilizations typically do not get toppled. They topple themselves. They die because of the mistakes they make internally. You can think of the Roman Empire that experienced internal turmoil. No external force was able to defeat them but themselves. And they experienced massive hyperinflation and monetary debasement. At some point, I was just following, I was making a course about money, and through that, I follow what happened to the value of the coins during the Roman Empire. And you can see it grows a little bit every year, but as soon as they begin having trouble internally, they also think about how can we quickly fix our problems by debasing money. And this is a millennial old problem. Humanity, as soon as, as early as kings have existed, they have found ways to mess with our money to fix their own internal problems. And typically what they do is they do this so much year after year, every year more than the year before, that they stretch the currency so thin that it breaks, right? So at that point, the market forces, through some volatile period, forces them to switch to something else. and that's where you lose a currency and something else gets replaced. What's happening to the U.S. is, again, we've been very, very fortunate to have this superpower that the world has to run on dollars. And this is partly through force and the powerful military of the U.S. and partly through the network effect. The world has to choose one thing. It's just such a crazy idea to have 200 or more different currencies and barter between them. There's no problem with everyone using the same measure of value, like we've been using gold for centuries, right? But now, because every country needs their own control over their economy, and we've invented this fiat thing, So every country has their own thing, and now they engage in this game of making sure that the relative value of all these things to each other are controlled. It's a lot of gaming for essentially nothing. You don't really need that. But to solve that, the world had to choose one currency, and through the nudge of the U.S. power, all countries or most of them have converged on the same thing. Of course, it's not universal. A lot of other things are being used, but if you're just using, yuan, right? Then you have to find some other partner that wants to accept yuan, right? So you just make your life harder, but everybody accepts dollars, right? So essentially the transaction costs are much higher in other currencies. You will only choose them if you have a big problem with the dollar, like if the dollar system is actively trying to block you, which reminds me of a few countries.
Sanctions on Russia.
So they are sort of at the edge of this network. They're not benefiting from it as much, so they have the interest to move on and create their own network. And there are, of course, other countries that have lost their currency, like El Salvador, and they're looking for something else. Some of them use the dollar, which puts them at a disadvantage because U.S. can print it and distribute it to their own folks, but none of it gets to El Salvador people, right? So they just become taxpayers to the U.S., right?
Yep.
So
Sure do.
they have all the incentive to move away. So we have this powerful core, but we have a weak periphery, and these have the incentive to move on to something else. But the problem is, what else is there? They could go to gold. If you look at Russia's gold holding, it's gone massively up. China, the same thing. They're trying to use that, but it hasn't worked well. There's a reason we're not using gold anymore. It's difficult to transfer, very expensive to transact in gold, unless you want to create some paper market on top of it, right? Which is not the same thing and doesn't give you the same sovereignty and everything else. So that's one option. The other option is to come up with your own system. For example, the BRICS could use yuan, as their common currency.
Yeah.
That has some problems because, first of all, the BRICS can't get along very well still. And, if you're not going to trust U.S., are you going to trust the Chinese government to not debase their own currency? It's the same thing. The same process that happens there will happen to other fiat currencies. So if you don't want to trust the U.S., you also don't want to trust Putin or Xi, right? And that's a huge problem. So they really have wanted, and I've talked a lot about switching to something else, but who are they going to trust? It has to be some kind of a shared agreement that, for example, China is not going to be taking advantage of India if they're using yuan. So that's a political battle that will prevent progress there. And if you see, like, year after year, the BRIC countries are saying we want to move away from the dollar, but they can't find a solution. What do you think is a better solution to them? Yep. I happen to know of a money that is in nobody's control. Nobody can change its supply. It's permissionless. Nobody can block you. Your account can never be seized. And what you have is yours. There is only one asset in the world that gives you full property rights. If you have a house, you are subject to the jurisdictions and the laws and regulations there. If you have a car, lots of things govern your ownership. You don't have real full ownership of anything.
Correct.
Your money is owned by your bank and the government and all the other guys. There is only one thing that you truly own, and especially if you're a country in an adversarial position that you don't want to really trust the existing system, that's a good option. But the reason it hasn't been adopted much yet is that, by the way, having a whole country, El Salvador, running on Bitcoin is a miracle, right? But the reason that many other countries are still not adopting it is because it's too small for that scale. And that's a problem that can be easily solved with time, right? As it gets more and more adoption, it will be big enough of a pond for the big boys to swim in. So other than that, there's basically no reason to not use it. And just your mind, explodes when you think about how much exciting things are on the horizon for Bitcoin.
What are the things that you are most excited about for Bitcoin that we see short term and long term?
Well, I'm mostly excited about people finding a solution to the biggest problem in the world's economy, which is how to store value. Economy runs on money. We use money as a yardstick, right?
Yep.
And that has not been performing well. And economists, a portion of them, not all, they have developed theories that basically say stealing money that somebody has worked for and stealing other people's capital is accepted just because a bank wants to give loan to an entrepreneur, right? That's the theory. The idea is if I'm an entrepreneur, I have a great idea, I don't have money. Somebody needs to lend me that money, right? And banks don't have their own money, right? They get to create money. And when they create, it is called creation, but it's essentially devaluing everybody else's money and then cutting a piece of it and giving it to the entrepreneur. And the company that this guy creates ends up creating jobs, and there is some positive about it. But in practice, it ends up being causing cantillon effects, right? If you create money for entrepreneurs, you can also create money for your friends and cronies and the speculators, and you can build a whole empire, and you can hire your own scientists to sort of condone this and develop models that prove this. So, and this is a huge problem. It is, I believe, the core cause of inequality. It is not moral, it's immoral. As Rothbard would say, inflation is taking money out of somebody else's capital without their consent. Even if it's for good purposes, which it is not, it is still stealing. It's Robin Hoodism, right? So I'm excited for Bitcoin to show the world that we can do better as a society, as a civilization. And, sound engineering is a much better foundation to build an economy on versus worthless pieces of paper.
What are your thoughts on the L2s and all these applications that are building on top of Bitcoin? I've heard some maxis say like F that, like we're just strictly Bitcoin, blah, 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 blah. And then you have other people that are saying it's a positive thing for Bitcoin. What are your stances on the L2s that are building on Bitcoin? And if you're pro and you are positive about them, are there any that you're more excited about than others?
Listen, like many other topics in probably every area, this is a nuanced discussion. I'm not going to say, L2s are useless, but there is understandably a lot of promises, a lot of things that are being built which are not proven to actually work. So you want to be very careful. At the same time, if Bitcoin is the protocol for money, it is the foundation of economy. If that's the case, you should have an economy built on top of it. So actually, if you don't have layer 2s and layer 3s and layer 4s, Bitcoin has not succeeded. So people who basically say we don't need any other thing on top of it, they haven't really maybe thought sufficiently about what it takes for Bitcoin to be successful. We need an ecosystem. We need a lot of other tools and technology and software and services built around it that use Bitcoin as the reserve asset, right? We need all of it. But the problem is a lot of people in the past have used this opportunity, essentially misused it, and created fake, useless stuff over promising. So I understand a lot of people being super, super skeptical, but that's what we need. At some point we need to build widely adopted, widely used things on top of Bitcoin. And that's how Bitcoin will reach its potential. We're not going to survive by just using the base layer. It's not enough for supporting the whole planet. If Bitcoin gets to the prices that we talk about, normal people can't even afford one transaction on chain, right? So we definitely need a scaling solutions. It's super, super smart people are working on it. And what we need is just more and more capital and investment to support these developers and to take these wonderful ideas that they have to fruition and to something that generates positive economic value.
Are you experienced about nodes and how running your own node works?
Yeah, I've been running my
What
own and like.
you are running your own. Can you give us a little breakdown? I got my node set up over here. I think it just finished syncing up. I got a gentleman that's coming on to dive a little bit more deeper into that. But can you tell us a little bit about what the advantages of running your own node are and why people should?
Yes. So the main reason for running a node is that you will have a tool to verify your Bitcoin is real money. So if you have an application that shows you have 2 Bitcoin, how do you know it's real, right? If you don't have your own node, somebody else's node is verifying that for you. So you're essentially relying on a company to tell you, hey, this number is your money.
Mm-hmm.
If you receive money, you're not sure that it's real versus something on the screen, right? Your node has the responsibility to verify that it is that transaction represents valid Bitcoin, being sent to you, and it satisfies all the rules on the network. It's not going to be reversed and things like that. Other than that, it's a wonderful learning opportunity. It supports the network. We probably have tens of thousands of nodes right now, so we have really good level of decentralization, but especially when we have an adversary trying to attack the network, more and more nodes will essentially add to the decentralization and the power to resist attacks. So it is kind of the Bitcoiner thing to do. So congratulations on working on your node.
Thank you. And you said you're on the Lightning Network, correct? Are you running there's two different types of nodes. There's a Bitcoin node and then there's a Lightning node, correct?
Yes. The Lightning node could be just a regular or a transmitter. I forgot the actual terminology. Routing node, yes. So you could run a routing node, but I'm super lousy at managing it. It requires careful maintenance, and I don't have time for it. So I wouldn't say I'm doing a good job there.
Yeah, I've looked into try to open up a channel on the Lightning Network, and you can make a few little sats here and there. It's nothing crazy, but you can earn free sats, I guess, essentially. I've always wanted. I'm really dying. So if you know anybody that's really skilled at that and would like to come on for an interview and do like a show and tell and walk us through how to set one up, man, I'd be very interested in learning that. And I think a lot of people would too.
Absolutely.
What are you seeing as far as institutional adoption? We see a lot of sell pressure from Grayscale and their outflows. Are those outflows from them selling off Bitcoin, or is that outflows because I heard something like their fees are too high? What are your thoughts on Grayscale?
Listen, Grayscale situation is crazy. These guys, they are charging 1.5%. If I'm not mistaken, before that they were charging 2% on, billions, on tens of billions of dollars Bitcoin. So it's been really good money to them and really bad for investors. Apparently, that money has been so sweet that they're not willing to part with it, and they kept the 1.5% rate despite many other ETFs choosing, 25 basis points, 15, and HODL is actually now offering 0 management fees for a year. Compared to that competition, keeping your rate at 1.5% is just voluntary suicide. So understandably, they are losing money, losing Bitcoin. By now, if you look at the flows, and I keep tracking this very closely, they have lost something like $13.8 billion worth of Bitcoin. So that's about half. So their holding is now dropped to half compared to the peak. More accurately, I think it's 46%. Imagine running a fund and within months, half of your fund is gone. It's crazy. and they should be thinking about a solution very soon. They are coming up with a gimmick, a mini ETF that offers a blended lower rate, but I wonder if that would be enough. Anyways, and a lot of those outflows are forced outflows, by the way. There's a portion that want to get lower fees. That portion, I think, is mostly done. What's left is just a small tail of slope reacting people. But most of the big outflows that we're seeing are forced outflows because of bankruptcies. Genesis, people said 1 or 2 billion, but it's actually newer estimates say they have $4 billion worth of Bitcoin to sell just to pay back the bankruptcy court, orders, and then a few other big boys that went bankrupt. They're also selling, and this is something that should not be counted as the ETF performance. This was always bound to happen, regardless of the ETF decision. These people were at the door trying to go out, and the ETF decision allowed them to do this. Because in the previous structure, Bitcoin could not leave the system, right? That's why GBTC was trading at a significant discount, right? So if I am right, how much these people can only sell once, right? Once the bankruptcy proceedings are done, there's the outflow from GBTC should turn into a small flow, ever dwindling amount of people that slowly get out of GBTC, and at some point the management will realize that it's only either they drop the fees or the whole fund is being dropped from investor portfolios. So
Yep.
They will figure it out, and they'll come up with some way of keeping the rest in there. So what they've done is really, what's the polite word? Is really not smart. But I think part of their calculation is like, even if we did drop the fee, a lot of these outflows would happen anyways for the reason I explained. If you have to liquidate your holdings so in bankruptcy, you're going to do it no matter how much they charge. So they thought we might as well charge the maximum amount as long as we have these. So that's the only way to sort of rationalize what they're doing. But I'm not expecting huge outflows to continue for much longer. As far as inflows, it has been a massive, massive success. There has been no ETF in the last 30 years that have received 50 back-to-back days of inflow right after launch. So, you expect a huge inflow the first few days, and then, sort of up and down, inflow, outflow, and it still is a huge success. But in this case, we are having non-stop inflow to BlackRock and Fidelity for, like I said, 50 trading sessions, and it has been much more successful than most people's optimistic estimates. Last week was not a great week because of Genesis sales, but if you look at the whole picture, $25 billion have flowed in, and if you look at the net flow, subtracting GBTC, it's about $11 billion net. $11 billion in how long has it's been? 2 months?
Yeah, 2.5 months.
That's almost one whole Michael Saylor. Michael Saylor is still 13 billion or something.
Yeah.
So Saylor, collected all that, built all that treasury over 4 years, I think, 3 or 4 years. Yeah. We got a second bucket of Wall Street money in 2 months. So things are just getting accelerated in an unbelievable way.
Do you think that, can you tell us a little bit about that Grayscale bankruptcy? So when you say Genesis, was that from when all the exchanges went bankrupt? I know GBTC is basically owned by Barry Silver, right? And he's the guy who was heavily invested in FTX. He owns the borrowing and lending protocols. He owns Chain Analysis, which is a analytic company that creates reports that they are then given to the government, and those government uses those reports to make regulations. And they actually arrested a man based off of data that was given to them by Chain Analytics, and now they're coming out, and experts are exposing that Chain Analytics is basically a fraud. They're putting out fake fake data, and they're basically using that data to create regulatory monopolies over the crypto industry, which is all rigged, and everything points back to Barry Silver. He's the man who owns and runs Grayscale, correct? And now is this everybody in the market just going like, this guy's a huge fraud? He's the Bernie Madoff of the crypto space. We're all going to flee Grayscale, or is Grayscale going to survive this? Do you think?
They certainly have. DCG is certainly a huge empire, and it's a big red flag. They own the exchanges and the analytics, and it doesn't look good.
The hedge funds, the borrowing and lending protocols, the news outlets, they own CoinDesk. Like, I mean, they own it all. It's the biggest fraud in this industry, in my opinion. But go ahead, sorry.
This is a huge red flag. Not a lot of people are really talking about this. This is extremely problematic. They're on not even both sides. They're on all the 6 sides of the equation. You know? And then what happens as far as why these bankruptcy outflows are happening, especially in 2021. If you look at the chart and when Grayscale really got the inflow, exactly when Grayscale popularized the basis point trade, the fact that people could benefit from an arbitrage that GBTC offered, this caused a lot of billions of dollars of money flowing into GBTC, and GBTC had to buy Bitcoin for the trust, and the coins couldn't leave, as I said. So it was a nice black hole for coins, and lots of it, and people levered up to benefit from this trade. And if you look at the chart, bull market of 2021 started exactly at that time. So essentially, GBTC was a huge contributor to that massive rise to 65 or something, 67. And then Elon Musk came in, and I remember it was at probably 30K, Elon Musk announced his interest, and that took us to the peak. And then Elon Musk said he's not considering it, and he changed his mind, whatever. We came back down. Exactly at that point, GBTC stopped getting more inflow. So the trade stopped, the hedge funds and everybody else, the arbitrage stopped. And then the market tanked, and essentially no money entered and very little money left because of their 2% fee. So the management fee was collected through sales of the Bitcoin. So essentially, GBTC stayed that high while a lot of investors wanted out, right?
Yep.
And as this was happening, as the market corrected from 65 to, was it 15 or something? A lot of the, levered up boys found themselves underwater. Lots of people lost their money, including people like FTX and all the geniuses that exist in the bull market, and they lever up 2x, 3x, 4x. There are 100x as well, like super illiterate, financially illiterate people. I was like 100x. Yeah, and then when it goes up, they feel like they're smart, but then when market surprises you, they lose all the money, and a lot of money vanished like this in supposedly smart trading firms. One of that was Gemini's money in Genesis, and now Genesis owes money to Gemini, and what actually belongs to the normal people holding their money on their exchange. So fortunately, the market has recovered, so those people probably get quite a bit of their money back. And same thing is happening on BlockFi. A lot of people had the number on the screen, right, which didn't represent real Bitcoin, and when the trade went sideways, there was no real Bitcoin. So you were left with hope. You were left hoping that a BlockFi would do good by you, and they're now returning a small portion of what people had there, just because the market has gone back up. And these, it's crazy. They record your number at the bottom, right? And if the market recovers, they still return you that original amount. Anyway, that's a side. But all the leverage that got wiped out is basically money that was never there, and it caused unnecessary unsupported pump in the market, took us really high and exploded. So all that money is gone, and now lots of people are waiting to get it back. That's why there's no other choice fortunately, there is law and there are courts that force Gemini and Genesis to pay back some of what they owe people. So that's what's happening, and it's all good. It's all great. I think nothing to be worried about. Just it's going to end at some point, and market will stabilize, and then we will have 9 or 10 ETFs from very powerful, influential firms that are constantly advertising for Bitcoin and doing the work that individual crazy people, super shadowy internet boys have been doing for years. Now, big boys of the Wall Street are doing this work for us. So I'm looking forward to see what happens down the road in the next few months.
Well, Sina, we are hitting that 1 hour mark, and I want to promote your Twitter. I want to promote your company. I want everybody to understand how they can get into contact with you. I got your Twitter up here on the screen. We got links for everything down in the description. But tell us a little bit about 21st Capital. What are you guys doing over there? How does your company work, and why should people care, and why should people want to get in contact with you?
Awesome. Thanks a lot. So listen, we are a group of Bitcoin educators. We've been developing communities, courses, live sessions in our little corners. A few months back, 4 of us came together. It's a combination of people with background in finance, economics, me and a friend of mine, and then developers and super technical guys. And we formed 21st Capital, which at its first stage is doing performing consulting services. So what we are offering to a few of clients right now is we help them get onboarded. We teach them about everything they need to know about Bitcoin. We handhold them to acquire, store, properly custodied without us being able to see or touch any of their assets. We guide them through the process, teach them proper custody. If it's a lot of money, we will also help them establish collaborative custody, which allows you to keep your own keys, but through a multi-sig arrangement allows a backup party to also keep a backup in case you lost your own or you got attacked or something.
Yep.
There is some recourse to get your money back. So we are offering those services as well as fund recoveries, like people who lose their seeds. In a few cases, we've been able to find it back and recover a good portion of the funds. So these are services we offer right now, and we're also in the process of doing more, but I'll announce it as we move forward. We're developing our in-house infrastructure, and it's really going well. So we'll be expanding it beyond consulting. But feel free to reach out and book a free consulting session. We tell you everything you need to know, and you'll be able to make an informed decision about your Bitcoin plans. Other than that, you may want to follow my account or 21st Capital account. I post anything that I feel informative. I try to minimize the low value content, like being excited about price and stuff, which is great, but we have too much of that. So I'm trying to bring something new to the table to my abilities. So would love to hear from you and get your feedback. And again, thanks a lot, Ryan, for reaching out. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've watched a few of your other interviews, and it's been wonderful. You're a really good advocate, and good luck with your journey.
No, thank you, Sina. Thank you for coming on, man. I'm glad that you actually were able to get on together this morning. I was really bummed out. I was super excited for this interview, and I was like, oh man, it just damn Twitter. I know if I could message you on Twitter, I know everything would have been perfect, but my account's in timeout for saying something that goes against the.
I've been sending you messages, and he hasn't responded to any of my messages. Are we still on? Are we still? And then I was sending you, okay, what kind of software do I need to install? And this morning I woke up, no answers. And then I got your email, responded to the email, it got blocked. So I tried to use a different account. It also got blocked. Something is happening, man. The internet is not treating you well lately.
I need to get everybody talks about Proton Mail, and I've just been a creature of habit. I've been using Gmail for so long, and it's so convenient, but Now you're starting to see you're the second person that's been just trying to send me basically a normal DM and then they're getting blocked for some reason. And that's obviously Google purposely blocking these emails. They should go through. I would love to get you back on and talk a little bit more about this multi-sig stuff. If you ever want to come on, maybe in a couple weeks or whenever you get time again, I would love to do a specific show on multi-sig and like really teaching people how to secure their Bitcoin and what does that entail? How do you, I'm curious about, like you said, you have a backup key where you get another person that can have, and I'm just curious all the details about, is it safe? Who are you finding for this second person? Can they steal your crypto if they want it? I got so many questions I'd love to ask you on that. So if you'd like to come back on and do a second interview in a week or whenever you get time, I'd love to have you back.
I think it's a fascinating topic. Would love to talk about it.
Grayscale, thank you so much, guys. Make sure you guys swing over there and follow him over on X. He's always putting out amazing Bitcoin content. That's how I found him. So I appreciate the work that you're doing, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and look forward to having you back.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. God bless you, man. Thank you. Later. All right, folks, that is a wrap over here on the Ryan Matta Show. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us. We greatly appreciate it. If you guys could do us a huge solid, these are just our new shows. I know we don't have a major audience over here, but the more that you guys go out of your way to hit that like button and share that content out here, the more people that are going to see it. We do 2 crypto shows per day. Our morning show at 10 a.m. is a Bitcoin only show. We also do a political show, or I do a political show over on LFA TV at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time called Matter of Fact. So if you guys want to go down the political rabbit hole and actually understand what's happening to our country, which directly affects the price of Bitcoin. So if you understand the political landscape, you're able to make a lot more educational plays into Bitcoin, or at least I was this summer. This is how we knew that, that 15 to 20K range was the bottom, and we were buying pretty heavily over there. So come and join us over on LFA TV. And then I also do a nighttime show at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you guys are interested in learning more about the crypto landscape in general, I'm trying to reach out and get a lot of these Bitcoin L2s and these projects and these companies and corporations that are building on top of Bitcoin. So if you guys know anybody, on Thursday nights, we do a Cadena roundtable. So if you're interested in learning more about smart contract blockchains, specifically proof of work smart contract blockchains that are going to revolutionize the smart contract industry, these companies are off the hook. So give us a follow, hit that like button, share this content. God bless each and every one of you guys. And I look forward to seeing you guys today at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on LFA TV. We're going to go deep down a rabbit hole, specifically what's going on in El Salvador. If you didn't see it this morning, stay tuned. It's going to be a good show. God bless you guys. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Run.